An earthquake struck approximately 53 km SSW of the town of Mansfield, in the Victorian Alps of Australia on the 22nd of September 2021. At 9:15 local time, the earthquake measured 5.9 on the moment magnitude scale. The earthquake caused minor structural damage in parts of Melbourne and left one person injured. The earthquake was also felt in New South Wales, Australian Capital Territory, South Australia and Tasmania. The earthquake was substantially stronger than the 1989 Newcastle earthquake, which measured MW 5.6 and killed 13 people. The Australian landmass is situated in the Australian plate, far from any known active plate boundary, where most of the world's earthquakes occur. Such earthquakes at the plate boundary are known as interplate earthquakes. In Australia, earthquakes occurring within the Australian plate are known as intraplate earthquakes because they happen within a tectonic plate rather than at the boundary. The Governor Fault is a large intraplate fault that runs from mid-western New South Wales, along part of the Murray River bed and cutting through central North Victoria near Burma to the Victorian Alps near Mount Buller down toward the Gippsland Basin near the coast at St. Margaret Island. Tectonically, this fault separates the Melbourne and Tabarabaran structural zones. An earthquake of magnitude 6.0 or larger strikes Australia about once every 6 to 10 years. Based on the seismological data collected over the past 150 years, the last known magnitude 6.0 quake rocked Australia in 2016 in the Northern Territory. That earthquake occurred as a result of shallow reverse faulting within the Australian plate. The largest earthquake in Australia were the 1988 Tennant Creek earthquakes, which consisted of an MW 6.7 quake and two greater than MW 6.0 foreshocks. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, the earthquake was the result of strike-slip faulting at a shallow depth of 10 kilometers, while Geoscience Australia placed the depth at 12 kilometers. The EMSC reported the focal depth at 2 kilometers. A preliminary insight of the quake of such magnitude suggests a rupture along a fault measuring 5 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide. The geological fault involved has been identified as the western reaches of Governor Fault. Seismologists at the University of Melbourne said the earthquake likely ruptured along an east-west striking strike-slip fault. The earthquake occurred when elastic strain accumulated on active fault is released in the form of seismic waves that are felt on the surface as shaking. On the modified Mercalli intensity scale, the earthquake earned a maximum intensity of 7. Tremors were felt in Adelaide, southern NSW, Canberra and as far as Launceston in Tasmania. According to a geologist at the University of Melbourne, the quake produced 10 seconds of strong shaking which was felt by people. The earthquake generated shaking lasting up to a minute at the epicenter region. Many residential buildings in Melbourne were evacuated due to the damage inflicted by the quake. Some damage was reported in many parts of Victoria. At Chapel Street, Melbourne, the earthquake collapsed the top facade of Betty's Burgers and Concrete Co., which is a brick building, and left debris across the road. Along Brunswick Road in Fitzroy, another brick building suffered a partial collapse of its facade. At least 46 instances of building damage to chimneys and facades were reported in the city. Tall residential apartments of up to 50 stories swayed for as much as 20 seconds, triggering panic among residents. In Mansfield near the epicenter, there was minor damage to some buildings including a local ambulance centre. Power outages were reported across parts of metropolitan Melbourne. In the town of Mansfield, Victoria, the quake caused some minor damage to buildings, resulting in no casualties. At least 40 kilometers away is a gold mine operated by Kaiser Reef. When the tremors began, at least 12 mining workers were present in the mine and were brought to the surface unhurt. Kaiser Reef said that mining would cease temporarily while inspections were carried out. The company did not find any damage in the mine area. Another mine located 60 kilometers away and operated by White Rock Minerals did not find any damage to their mines after the quake. 9 workers under the mine were safely evacuated. Initially, State officials and emergency services said no casualties were caused by the earthquake. But a man in Mount Eliza, a coastal suburb in Melbourne, sustained minor injuries. The man was injured when construction fell on him while he was working. Geoscience Australia said the earthquake is the strongest to hit Victoria in 50 years. It is also the largest earthquake on land in the nation since a magnitude 6.0 struck the Northern Territory in 2016. Acting Premier of Victoria James Merlino said a statewide watch and act warning was in place for Victoria. The Fire and Rescue NSW service stated on social media that they had received calls for assistance in the New South